Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the English Learning Podcast. I'm Jason, your host for today's episode.
And I'm Julia, your co-host. We're so glad you're here with us.
In this episode, we're diving into a topic that's super important but often overlooked: how to master small talk in English.
That's right, Jason. Small talk might seem, well, small, but it's actually a big part of daily conversations. Whether you're chatting with coworkers, meeting someone new, or even just talking to your neighbors, small talk helps you connect with people and build relationships.
Exactly, Julia. And for English learners, small talk is a fantastic way to practice speaking naturally and confidently. But we know it can feel tricky sometimes. What do you say? How do you keep the conversation going?
No worries, we're here to guide you step by step. Today, we'll share tips, examples, and even a fun role play to help you become a small talk pro in English.
So grab a notebook, get comfortable, and let's get started. All right, Julia, let's start with the big question. Why is small talk so important? Some people might think it's just meaningless chatter, but that's not true at all, is it?
Not at all, Jason. Small talk is actually the foundation of most social interactions. It helps you break the ice and create a connection with someone, whether it's a stranger, a colleague, or even a friend you haven't seen in a while.
Exactly. And for English learners, it's especially valuable. Small talk gives you a chance to practice speaking in a low-pressure setting. Plus, it's a way to show that you're friendly and open to conversation.
Yes, and it's also a skill that comes in handy in so many situations. Think about it. You're at a party, starting a new job, or even waiting in line at a coffee shop. Small talk can make those moments less awkward and more enjoyable.
Absolutely. It's not just about filling the silence. Small talk can open the door to deeper conversations and stronger relationships.
And don't forget, small talk is a universal skill. It's not just about learning English. It's about understanding social cues and building your confidence in interacting with others.
Well said, Julia. So, whether you're learning English for work, travel, or just everyday life, mastering small talk is a step toward becoming more confident and fluent.
And the best part? Small talk topics are simple and universal. We'll get into those in the next section, so stay tuned.
Now that we know why small talk is important, let's dive into some common topics. Julia, what's your go-to topic when starting a casual conversation?
Well, Jason, you can never go wrong with the weather. It's simple, universal, and everyone has something to say about it. For example, "It's such a sunny day today," or "Wow, it's really cold out, isn't it?"
True, the weather is a classic, and it works anywhere in the world. Another great topic is hobbies. Asking someone, "What do you like to do in your free time?" can lead to some interesting and personal conversations.
Absolutely. People love talking about their interests, and if you share a hobby, it can really help you connect. Another easy topic is travel. You can ask, "Have you been anywhere exciting recently?" Or, "Do you have any plans for a holiday?"
That's a good one, Julia. Travel stories are always fun to share. Another safe choice is talking about work or studies. For example, "What do you do for work?" Or, "Are you a student?" These questions are polite and show genuine interest in the other person.
And don't forget about current events. Just keep it light and neutral. For instance, "Did you hear about the new movie coming out?" Or, "Have you seen the latest sports match?" These topics are great because they keep the conversation casual.
Exactly. And here's a tip. Steer clear of controversial topics like politics, religion, or anything too personal, especially when you're just getting to know someone.
That's a great point. You want to keep the conversation positive and enjoyable. Remember, the goal of small talk is to make the other person feel comfortable and engaged.
So to recap, good small talk topics include the weather, hobbies, travel, work or studies, and light current events. And now that we've covered what to talk about, let's move on to how to actually start a conversation.
Yes, starting a conversation can feel tricky, but don't worry, we'll break it down step by step in the next section.
All right, Julia, we've talked about why small talk is important and some common topics. But now comes the part that many people find challenging. Actually starting a conversation. Where should we begin?
Great question, Jason. Starting a conversation doesn't have to be scary. The key is to keep it simple. One of the easiest ways to start is with a greeting. Something like, "Hi, how are you?" or "Good morning" sets a friendly tone.
Absolutely. Greetings are universal and polite. And after the greeting, you can follow up with a simple comment or question. For example, "It's such a nice day today, isn't it?" Or, "I noticed your laptop sticker. Are you into coding?"
That's a great tip, Jason. Observing your surroundings can give you plenty of ideas. If you're at a cafe, you could say, "This place has great coffee. Have you been here before?" If you're at an event, you might ask, "How are you enjoying the event so far?"
Exactly. Context is your best friend. Another effective approach is to use compliments. For instance, "I really like your jacket. Where did you get it?" Or, "That's a great book you're reading. What's it about?" Compliments are a great icebreaker because they make people feel good.
Yes, compliments work wonders. And here's a tip. Make sure your tone is genuine. People can tell when you're not being sincere. Another way to start a conversation is to ask for help or advice. For example, "Do you know where the nearest bus stop is?" Or, "I'm trying to choose something from the menu. What's your favorite dish here?"
That's brilliant, Julia. Asking for help not only starts a conversation, but also shows that you trust the other person's opinion. It creates a nice, collaborative atmosphere.
Another idea is to ask open-ended questions. Questions that can't be answered with just yes or no. For example, instead of asking, "Did you enjoy the movie?" you could ask, "What did you think of the movie?" This invites the person to share their thoughts.
Good point, Julia. And here's something to remember. Your body language matters just as much as your words. Smile, make eye contact, and keep an open posture. These nonverbal cues show that you're approachable and interested in the conversation.
Yes, a warm smile can make a huge difference. And don't forget about your tone of voice. Speak clearly and confidently, but don't rush. You want to sound relaxed and natural.
Let's not forget the importance of practicing these skills. The more you practice starting conversations, the easier it gets. Try starting small, like greeting a cashier or saying hi to a coworker.
Exactly. Start with low-pressure situations and work your way up. And don't worry if it feels awkward at first. That's completely normal. The important thing is to keep trying.
So to recap, starting a conversation is all about keeping it simple. Use greetings, compliments, observations, or open-ended questions. Be mindful of your tone and body language, and don't be afraid to practice.
Great summary, Jason. And don't forget, it's okay to make mistakes. Every conversation is a learning opportunity. Up next, we'll talk about how to keep the conversation going once you've started it.
Stay with us, everyone. We'll be back after this quick break. Welcome back, everyone. Now that you know how to start a conversation, let's move on to the next challenge, keeping it going. Julia, why do conversations sometimes feel like they hit a dead end?
That's a great question, Jason. One reason is that people often don't know how to respond in a way that encourages more discussion. For example, if someone says, "I love reading," and you just reply with, "Oh, that's nice," the conversation might stop there.
Exactly. That's why it's important to show genuine interest and ask follow-up questions. Instead of just saying, "That's nice," you could ask, "What kind of books do you like to read?" Or, what's the best book you've read recently?
Yes, follow-up questions are key. They show that you're listening and that you want to learn more about the other person. Another tip is to share a little about yourself in return. For example, if someone says they like hiking, you could say, "That's great, I enjoy hiking too. What's your favorite trail?"
Good point, Julia. This creates a natural back-and-forth exchange, which keeps the conversation flowing. Another technique is to expand on what the other person says. For instance, if they mention they've been to a concert, you could say, "Wow, that sounds fun. Who did you see? Do you go to concerts often?"
Exactly, Jason. And don't forget to look for common ground. If someone mentions they love cooking, you can talk about a recipe you recently tried or ask them for their favorite dish. Finding shared interests makes conversations more engaging and personal.
Another great tip is to use active listening. This means giving verbal cues like, "Oh, really?" or "That's interesting," and even repeating back part of what they said. For example, if they say, "I've been learning to play the piano," you can respond with, "Learning to play the piano? That's amazing! How long have you been practicing?"
Yes, active listening makes people feel heard and appreciated. And here's another trick. Don't be afraid of pauses. A brief silence is okay. It gives both of you a moment to think. Sometimes, rushing to fill the silence can make the conversation feel forced.
Good point, Julia. Also, if the conversation seems to slow down, you can introduce a new topic. For example, if you've been talking about work for a while, you could ask, "By the way, do you have any plans for the weekend?" Changing the subject can keep things fresh.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about humor. If appropriate, a light joke or funny comment can keep the conversation lively and enjoyable. Just make sure it's friendly and not too personal.
Definitely, Julia. And lastly, end the conversation on a positive note if it's wrapping up. Something like, "It was great talking to you. I hope we can chat again soon." Leaving a good impression encourages future conversations.
So to sum up, keeping the conversation going is all about asking follow-up questions, sharing your own experiences, actively listening, finding common ground, and introducing fresh topics when needed.
Well said, Julia. Remember, conversation is like a dance. It's all about balance and flow. Practice makes perfect.
That's right. And speaking of practice, in the next section, we'll do a quick role play to show you how small talk works in real life. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, everyone. So far, we've covered starting conversations and keeping them going, but let's face it, sometimes things don't go as smoothly as planned. Julia, how do you handle those awkward moments when a conversation doesn't go the way you expect?
Oh, Jason, we've all been there. Maybe there's an awkward silence or you say something that doesn't land the way you hoped. The first thing to remember is, don't panic. Awkward moments are normal and happen to everyone.
That's so true, Julia. And here's a tip. Acknowledge the awkwardness with a smile or even a light joke. For example, if there's an uncomfortable pause, you could say, "Wow, I think we just broke the record for the longest silence." Humor can break the tension and make everyone feel more relaxed.
I love that, Jason. And if you've said something that feels off, don't be afraid to apologize or clarify. For example, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way. What I meant to say was," being honest shows you care about the other person's feelings.
Exactly. And if the conversation feels stuck, try changing the topic. You can say something like, "Anyway, I was meaning to ask, do you have any hobbies?" This shifts the focus and gives the conversation a fresh start.
Great point. Another way to handle awkward moments is to ask a question. When in doubt, go back to being curious. For instance, "I feel like I've been talking too much. What's your opinion on this?" Questions show interest and help bring the other person back into the conversation.
And here's another tip. Don't overthink the awkward moment. Sometimes we worry about it more than the other person does. Just keep things light and move forward. Most people won't even remember it later.
That's so true, Jason. Confidence is key. If you stay calm and positive, you'll find that most awkward moments pass quickly. And remember, these moments are a normal part of learning and improving your communication skills.
So to summarize, handle awkward moments by staying calm, using humor, apologizing or clarifying when needed, and shifting the conversation with a fresh topic or a question. And most importantly, don't dwell on it.
Exactly. Conversations don't have to be perfect. They just need to be genuine. Coming up next, we'll share some final tips to help you master small talk with confidence.
Stay with us, everyone. We're almost at the finish line. Welcome back, everyone. Now that we've discussed how to start conversations, keep them going, and handle awkward moments, let's talk about the final piece of the puzzle. Practice. Julia, why is practice so important when it comes to small talk?
Great question, Jason. Practice is the key to building confidence and improving your skills. Just like learning a new sport or instrument, the more you practice small talk, the more natural it will feel.
That's such a good point. And the best part is, you can practice anywhere. Start with small, low-pressure interactions. For example, greet your neighbor, ask the cashier how their day is going, or chat with a coworker about their weekend.
Exactly. These everyday conversations are like mini practice sessions. And don't worry if it feels awkward at first. Every conversation helps you get better. You'll start to notice what works and what doesn't.
Another tip is to set small goals for yourself. For instance, you could aim to talk to one new person each day or ask 3 open-ended questions in a single conversation. Setting goals makes practice more intentional.
I love that idea, Jason. And if you're not sure where to start, role-playing with a friend or even practicing in front of a mirror can help. You can also use language learning apps or join conversation groups to get more comfortable.
Yes, and podcasts like this one are a great way to practice listening and pick up useful phrases. Pay attention to how people start and maintain conversations, and try using those techniques yourself.
Another idea is to keep a journal of your experiences. Write down what you tried, what worked, and what didn't. Reflecting on your progress helps you identify areas to improve and builds your confidence over time.
That's a fantastic suggestion, Julia. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of learning. The important thing is to keep going and not let one awkward conversation discourage you.
Exactly. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become. Over time, you'll find that small talk feels less like a challenge and more like a natural part of your day.
So to wrap up, practice small talk wherever you can, at home, at work, or in public. Set goals, reflect on your progress, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. The more you try, the better you'll get.
Well said, Jason. And that brings us to the end of today's podcast on mastering small talk. Thank you for joining us, and remember to keep practicing. It's the best way to improve.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next time on the English Learning Podcast. Until then, keep the conversations going. Welcome back. To wrap up this podcast, let's do a quick role-play exercise to show you how small talk works in real life. Julia, are you ready?
Ready when you are, Jason. Let's dive in.
Okay, here's the scenario. We're colleagues, and we just bumped into each other at the coffee machine at work. Ready?
Got it. Let's start.
Hey, Julia. Good morning. How's your day going so far?
Good morning, Jason. It's going well, thanks. How about you?
Pretty good. Just getting started. By the way, I noticed you've been bringing those homemade lunches lately. Are you into cooking?
Oh, I am. I actually find it relaxing. Plus, it's healthier and fun to experiment with recipes.
That's awesome! What's the most recent recipe you've tried?
Yesterday, I made a Thai green curry for the first time. It turned out better than I expected.
Thai green curry. That sounds delicious. Do you follow a specific recipe, or do you just wing it?
A bit of both, actually. I like to start with a recipe for inspiration, then adjust it based on what I have at home.
That's such a good way to cook. I might have to try that. I've been wanting to learn how to make something new. Any beginner-friendly suggestions?
Absolutely! You could start with pasta dishes. They're simple and you can customize them easily. I can share a recipe if you'd like.
That would be great. Thanks, Julia. Well, I'd better get back to work, but it was nice chatting with you.
Likewise, Jason. Let's catch up again soon.
And that's it. See how natural and relaxed small talk can be?
Exactly. All it takes is asking questions, sharing a bit about yourself, and being genuinely interested in the other person.
So, listeners, your challenge this week is to try a small talk role play like this one with a friend, or even practice it by yourself.
Yes, and don't forget, the more you practice, the easier it becomes. You've got this.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Until next time, keep practicing